Tonight, Friday Night SmackDown once again emanates from the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, inside the WWE Thunderdome. Of course, it's night one of the WWE draft. Night two will take place the following Monday on Monday Night Raw, but night one is tonight for the draft, so we will see who goes to Raw and who goes to SmackDown. But in this video, we're going to be doing, don't worry, we're going to do a separate video on the draft preview, but in this video, we're going to be talking about the SmackDown Women's Championship match scheduled for tonight's episode of SmackDown. We have SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley defending against her former best friend, her former WWE Women's Tag Team Championship partner, Sasha Banks. Obviously, this is Sasha Banks' first match since Bayley attacked Sasha Banks several weeks ago on SmackDown. To be honest, I'm very surprised. I'm very, very surprised because I understand what WWE's trying to do here. They're trying to load up the show. They're trying to pop a big rate in. It's draft night. Let's put some big matches on the show. People are already tuning in for the draft. If you're not, let's give more reasons to tune in. Essentially, what it is, isn't it? It's not only tune in for the draft. Let's tune in for Sasha Banks. Let's tune in for Bayley, the SmackDown Women's Championship match. Let's tune in for the Kevin Owens versus The Fiend match. Let's tune in for Otis and his Money in the Bank. All of that stuff. But I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised that they're doing it. Let's be honest, I spoke about this, I think, at least 3 or 4 times here on the channel now. I felt that the Sasha Banks versus Bayley match, that whenever they would have it, could be a WrestleMania main event. That was my thought process on it. And the reason why it was my thought process on it is because look at the time. Look at the time you've put into this feud. Look at the time you've spent building this up. Look at the time you spent building up this Bayley and Sasha Banks story. By the time WrestleMania 37 comes around, and at this point, let's be honest, who knows where WrestleMania 37 will be, whether it's in California in SoFi Stadium or whether it's in Florida, in Tampa Bay at the Raymond James Stadium there. Regardless of where it is, I personally, I really did feel, and it's not the case now, but I really did feel that Sasha Banks versus Bayley could have been the main event of WrestleMania 37. And I know a lot of people response to that was, no chance, no chance. Well, why not? Why not? I felt that by the time WrestleMania 37 came around, it would have been 2 years. 2 years since Bayley and Sasha Banks defended the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships at WrestleMania 35. They lost. Bayley disappeared. Sasha Banks disappeared. And Sasha Banks disappeared. She comes back. When she comes back, she's a heel in 2019. And when she becomes a heel in 2019, not long after that, Bayley follows her and becomes a heel. Bayley then, in becoming a heel, she loses the championship to Charlotte Flair 1 week, wins it back the following week. She becomes a full-fledged heel, change of character. Bayley and Sasha Banks are drafted together on SmackDown. And then they go on what was one of the most impressive years ever, really, from 2 females in WWE. At one point this year, Sasha Banks and Bayley held all the gold in WWE if you're a female performer. You had Bayley as the SmackDown Women's Champion. You had Sasha Banks as the Raw Women's Champion. Then you had both of them, the Golden Role Models, as the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. And let's not get it mistaken here. Everyone knew that eventually Sasha Banks and Bayley are going to break up. They're going to feud against each other. I mean, their history from their previous matches and feuds in NXT is mythic, and we haven't really seen it on the main roster in WWE. And I think people weren't too disappointed by that because a lot of people thought, well, whenever we get it, it's going to be special. And we don't want to just see Bayley versus Sasha Banks happen on a Raw or a SmackDown. We want to see it happen at a pay-per-view. We want to see it main event a pay-per-view. Heck, we want to see it happen at WrestleMania because their match at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn in 2015 is arguably one of, if not the best match in NXT TakeOver history. It's up there. One of the most historic, certainly. You talk about the women's evolution and revolution in WWE. It's, to me, I would argue that it started in NXT, and that match between Bayley and Sasha Banks stole that takeover. It was the best match on the show in Brooklyn, in the Barclays Center. NXT's first show inside the Barclays Center as well. Stole the show, put the 2 performers on the map, but also turned a lot of heads. There were a lot of people in attendance that night and watching at home, watched that match and said, okay, the women, they can main event shows. I know it wasn't the main event, but they should be main eventing shows. They can steal the show. They can have great matches. They can have the crowd on the edge of their feet. and they can do anything. They can do anything that the men can. It was such an historic match and such an important match that I felt that whenever they got round to doing this in WWE, it should be a WrestleMania main event. And I thought the time frame that they put into this, 2 years almost, and the amount of where they were going with it, like I mentioned previously, at one point they held all the championships in WWE, and I felt, well, they can stretch this out. They can stretch this out until WrestleMania. And then they did the split. So they did the split several weeks ago. And that really started up around SummerSlam because, of course, at SummerSlam, you had Bayley defeat Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship, but you also had Sasha Banks lose the Raw Women's Championship to Asuka. So 2 bouts Banks was no more. Then the following week at Payback, they lose the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships to Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler in what was a real tremendous match. The following week on SmackDown, you have the rematch for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. They lose once again. And then at the end of the match, or after the match rather, you have Bayley attack Sasha Banks and just brutally attack her. And again, I had no problem with the timing of that. I thought the attack was very well done. I thought, to be honest, you couldn't stretch that element out a bit much longer. Let's be really honest here, because Sasha Banks had already lost the Raw Women's Championship. She'd already lost the Women's Tag Team Championship. So they had to do it. They had to do the split. The plans were in motion. The moment Sasha Banks lost the Raw Women's Championship, the plans were in motion to do the split. So I didn't have a problem with that. What I thought at the time was, and what I had said at the time was, okay, you've done the attack on Sasha Banks. It was brutal. I think you even had the Pillmanizer on her neck. Okay, that makes total sense to me. Bayley's the heel. Right, let's keep Sasha Banks off of TV until the Royal Rumble. Right, let's keep him off of TV till the Royal Rumble. At that point, it was September. I thought, 3 months? You may keep her off of TV till January, so 3 and a bit months. That's fine. That's doable. And traditionally, the fall in WWE, I mean, you've got Survivor Series, but it's a bit of a blank spot, really, when it comes to WWE. What really is of importance in the fall? At this point of the year, even though people do talk about Survivor Series isn't the event that it once was. So you look at the importance of things. To be honest, once you get into October, November, people are already looking forward to the Royal Rumble. Or they're already talking about plans for WrestleMania. They're already talking about who's going to win the Royal Rumble. In essence, WrestleMania or the road to WrestleMania has already kind of started now. It starts after SummerSlam finishes, to be honest. So I thought, okay, we'll keep Sasha Banks off of TV until, as I said, about January time. She'll come back at either the Royal Rumble or just before. She can win the Royal Rumble match, and then you can face Bayley at WrestleMania, wherever it may be, but in the main event. And you can have a match that was 2 years in the making. You can pick up where they left off in terms of the quality of the matches they were having in those NXT TakeOver matches. You can do something really, really special here. And this story has kind of fallen into their lap in terms of how long it's taken to get to the end goal. But I thought it could be really, really special. And wouldn't you know it, Bayley does the attack on Sasha Banks, and then Sasha Banks is back on TV 2 weeks later, a week later, if that. I think it was about 2 weeks later because she appeared from the Performance Center. She does the interview from the Performance Center, and then Bayley attacks her again. So naively, I suppose, I went, okay, right, Bayley's attacked her again from the Performance Center. We'll keep Banks off of TV for a while. But no, back on TV. And she's attacking Bayley at Clash of Champions. And now, last week, she challenged Bayley to a match next week, or this week rather, on SmackDown for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So by all accounts, I'm guessing Sasha Banks is recovered. So not much of an attack, really. And it infuriated me that when she got attacked at the Performance Center, their report afterwards came out with, luckily there was no further damage done to her. She was wearing a neck brace and she got smacked in the back with a steel chair, and yet she's fine. No further injuries. Are you kidding me? It's rushed. It feels really, really rushed, and I don't understand why the need to rush it. I understand that there is a lack of depth in the SmackDown Women's division right now, and Bayley is kind of out of challenges to face for the SmackDown Women's Championship right now. That would be a problem unless there was a draft going on, which there is, starting tonight. So why rush? I don't get it. I don't understand the need to rush this storyline. I understand that when they did the breakup segment, and every time they've done a Bayley and Sasha Banks segment recently, the ratings have been really strong for them. And I'm guessing WWE thinks, right, why would we put this off? Let's continue it. The ratings are strong. is the reason the ratings are strong is because you've built this up over such a long period of time. You've taken your time with it. The reason the ratings are strong is because this is a story that's nearly 2 years in the making. That's why people are interested, because they've been along on the journey. They're invested in the storyline. So why rush it? You've taken this long to get here. Why are you rushing it? I don't understand that. Now, it had been reported and rumoured that in actuality, the main event of Hell in a Cell later this month is going to be Bayley versus Sasha Banks inside Hell in a Cell for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which, again, this storyline absolutely is it deserving to be a Hell in a Cell. It's perfect for Hell in a Cell. It's a bitter grudge. That's exactly what the Hell in a Cell match was made for, and that's exactly what kind of a feud should be inside of a Hell in a Cell match. We still don't have an announcement from that. We might have one after tonight, because I'll give you my prediction in a second, but I don't think we're really going to see this match tonight. So I wouldn't have a problem with that match being in a Hell in a Cell. I just have a problem with it being so soon. Again, why rush? Why are you taking... why did you take so long with this entire storyline, and now you're rushing the breakup and you're rushing the matches over the course of a couple of weeks? It doesn't make sense to me. And the reason I thought this could main event at WrestleMania is because I thought the story was good enough, I thought the talent was good enough, and I thought also it really sent a message. When you had the women main event at WrestleMania 35, you had the triple threat match, Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, and Becky Lynch. None of those guys are in WWE right now. They're all on the shelf for various reasons. And let's be honest, when it comes to that WrestleMania 35 main event, I think everyone universally was very happy to see the females main event. It was a historic moment, but there could be some naysayers that said, well, they're only going to do it once. It's a political gesture. They're trying to get good PR. They're only going to do it once. They're only going to do it with Ronda Rousey. If WWE had any balls, they would do it again with two different female superstars and say, look, not only did we do it before, but we're doing it again. Two out of the last 3 years main events of WrestleMania have involved females. This women's evolution is real. But it looks like they're rushing it, and they're going to do the match at Hell in a Cell instead. And I don't understand the necessity to rush it. I really don't. However, what I will say is, in terms of this match tonight, I just can't really see it happening. I think maybe we'll get them in the ring, and maybe we'll have the bell ring and all of that sort of stuff. But in terms of actually having the match, I think most likely we'll break down into a DQ or a count out or something like that. Most likely, if it breaks down into a DQ or a count out, maybe Bayley runs away from Sasha Banks, then they lay down the challenge, or Sasha Banks lays down the challenge of, you ran away tonight, but at Hell in a Cell, or Adam Pearce can do this, at Hell in a Cell, you're going to be in a match against Sasha Banks, which you can't run away from. It's going to be you versus the boss inside Hell in a Cell for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So in terms of a match tonight, I don't think we'll see a lot, if anything. I think maybe we'll see a minute at most, and then some form of a DQ, some form of a runaway from Bayley or something like that. I don't think Sasha Banks is going to win the SmackDown Women's Championship tonight. I do think this feud ends up, obviously, with Sasha Banks eventually becoming the SmackDown Women's Champion. That just kind of feels inevitable at this point. But we'll have to wait and see on that. The only other thing, and this is backtracking slightly, the only other thing I can think of when it comes to why are we getting Sasha Banks back on TV so quickly, why are they rushing this, etc., is because, of course, Sasha Banks is in Season 2 of The Mandalorian on Disney+, the Star Wars series, and when does that come out? Is that the end of the month, end of October, November time? So potentially, I guess WWE are thinking, let's get Sasha Banks as much TV time as possible right now. She's going to blow up massively if her performance is any good in the next kind of 6 weeks or so. So if we can get her prominently featured in storylines or prominently featured on TV, I guess from a marketing point of view, that makes sense. That is me kind of reaching at straws there, but I could see WWE doing stuff like that. It's the same with Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss is featured a lot on TV. She's just had a podcast launch and the show on the network and all of that kind of stuff. So they do feature in these kind of things, so I wouldn't be surprised with that. But like I said, in terms of this match tonight between Sasha Banks and Bayley, I don't expect to see much of it. I do think we'll probably see the rematch or the proper match at Hell in a Cell, but like I said before, I'm kind of disappointed that it's being rushed, because I felt like this could have been a lot more important and could have been really monumental, and truly I did think this could and should have main evented WrestleMania 37, but WWE decided to rush it, unfortunately. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Sasha Banks versus Bayley tonight on Friday Night SmackDown? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys and talking about wrestling on this channel, so be sure to leave a comment. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button as well. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.